Seeing none. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify in favor of HJR89? Seeing none, is there anyone here who would testify in opposition to HJR89? All right.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Joy Lieberman, and I am one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit where Judge Joyce threw out the language of a proposed photo ID constitutional amendment. I oppose the measures before you today for the same reason I decided to be part of this case, because I would lose my right to vote. To all appearances, I'm your typical, easily ignored, sweet little old lady. Well, please don't let appearances fool you. I'm angry. No, I'm really furious with what my state legislature is trying to do to me. The first time I went to vote was November of 1936. Please don't do the math. I was a tiny 5-year-old holding on to my mother's hand as she voted. My parents were the first in each of their families to be born in the United States, and they were such proud Americans. They impressed upon me how important it was to always vote and to vote wisely. Well, I took their advice to heart, and since I registered to vote 60 years ago, I have voted in every single election, no matter how seemingly unimportant. However, when the time comes to renew my driver's license, I will immediately be relegated to the rank of second-class citizenship. I would have difficulty under the proposed requirements of Missouri's photo ID bills proving that I am really me. When I was in my mid-40s, I discovered that my original birth certificate did not include my middle name, which is the name I use and have always used. I had my birth certificate amended at my expense, but this amended version, it's kind of a joke. It doesn't look original or official, and I can't believe that any bureaucrat would accept that as original documentation. Now, a little about me. I served as a local elected official for 24 years and ran 8 successful election campaigns. Nobody questioned my identity. I served on a state commission appointed by the governor for 5 years. No one questioned my identity. I was inducted into the Order of Distinguished Older Missourians at a ceremony and lunch at the governor's mansion. Again, nobody really cared about my identity. I have lobbied my senators and representatives in Washington. No one questioned my identity. I have testified numerous times before committees of the Missouri House and Senate, including today. Nobody asked for an ID. Now, I was told I shouldn't worry. Oh, I can continue to vote. I would just be voting a provisional ballot, which for me is tantamount to a non-vote, because along with so-called wisdom, age has also brought me a hand trimmer. And in order for a provisional ballot to be counted, one has to be able to duplicate their signature. I cannot do this. You might be surprised at how many of us will end up in this predicament. How many seniors are unable to duplicate their signature from many years ago? How many folks have birth certificates that don't include our current name? How many of us no longer drive, or someday will no longer drive, or have expired driver's licenses that would not be allowed if photo ID went into effect? In addition to disenfranchising me and more than 250,000 other Missouri registered voters, this is unnecessary. We are currently required to show ID at the polls, and I've always done so, and this works. The photo ID measure is expensive and it's irresponsible during a budget crisis to spend millions of dollars for an ineffective solution to a non-existent problem. A long time ago, our country fought a war protesting taxation without representation. And I guess it's fair to ask, if I am denied the right to vote, will my taxes be excused? I and the 250,000 other registered Missouri voters who will be disenfranchised are not provisional or marginal people. We are proud Americans, proud Missourians who are entitled to vote. Driving, banking, renting a movie, those things are privileges. Voting has always been a fundamental right in this country. Thank you.
All right, questions, Representative Cox?
Mrs. Lieber, I appreciate you being here today. I gather from your testimony that you have a current driver's license, is that right?
I do, and it will expire a year from now.
Right, and you have, from your testimony, you were obviously born before 1942, is that right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And in fact, you have a birth certificate issued by some state of
State of Missouri.
Missouri, okay. I would tell you there's nothing in this HJR that would deny you the right to vote, and there's nothing in any bill that's ever been considered in the General Assembly in the last 5, almost 6 years that I have served that would ever have denied you the right to vote. I just want to tell you that because the HJR does not have the full force and effect of law. Every law we've ever considered exempted people prior to 1942 who were born before 42, who could prove their identity with a driver's license, who certainly had a birth certificate. In fact, people who didn't have a birth certificate provided a mechanism, if they couldn't afford it, to either be excused or to have a birth certificate provided. I just wanted to tell you that. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that, but in a year, my driver's license will be expired.
Well, but there is such a thing as a non-driver's license, and
I'm still driving. And
well, what I'm saying is even people who don't have the privilege to drive can maintain a state that's identified. Yes.
But my documentation is not sufficient under these rules.
But it's sufficient enough to get you a driver's license currently.
As of today,
Yes.
yes.
And the standard of documentation is not changed at all by this HJR or any bill that has been filed in the last 6 years in the Missouri General Assembly. Just for your information.
In the past, all I've had to do is walk into the Department of Motor Vehicles, turn over my previous soon-to-be expired license, and get a new one.
And show your birth certificate.
No, I have never.
You've never done it because you've
Never.
not renewed since the law changed.
I have never had to show a birth certificate, even for my first driver's license when I was 16.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, is there any further, Representative Newman?
To inquire, Mr. Chair.
Proceed.
Ms. Lieberman, thanks so much for being here and putting a real face on this resolution. You know, we get sometimes so bogged down into the legalities and to the policy that we forget that what we actually do here affects, you know, real people in districts all over the state. And you look like you could be a constituent of any of ours. You know, that, you know, it's not specific exactly, you know, where you live, and I don't think this resolution is specific to any one district. But I wanted to also clarify, as far as your understanding too, in terms of the enabling legislation that we've already passed the House, you would not be able to even do a provisional ballot because you would not be able to do the signature which is required in that enabling legislation?
That's correct.
Because your signature, obviously, because of your tremor, would not match your original signature, correct?
That's correct.
And because you haven't had to renew your driver's license under the new provisions, that you're suspecting because of the problems with your birth certificate that would no longer be acceptable.
I believe that to be the case.
So I just wanted to clarify that as of today you're fine, but as of next year you may not be.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you for your testimony today. Other witnesses in opposition?